Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. And today we're going to review American Gods episode 3, entitled Head Full of Snow. And guys, I just want to say about this week's episode, my understanding of the author of this story, Neil Gaiman, is that through the book American Gods, um, the way that the story is written, it's not in a hurry to get any place. And that's pretty much the notion I got with this week's episode. That very interesting things happen in this week's episode. We did get to see some more of the older gods, but the story itself just seemed to kind of uh, it didn't really feel like a progression so much to me. One of the discussions has been that if American Gods goes more than one season, if it goes several seasons, which is seemingly the plan at this point, how would they be able to fill future episodes? And I think this week's episode kind of gives me an idea how they'll be able to push out the show over several episodes. And I thought this week's episode was fair. I think the show has a lot of great potential. I think a lot of things could have done. There's a lot of things I would have liked to have seen that I didn't get this episode. But all in all, a fair episode. Always a visually stunning. So I appreciated that. But it was just something about coming off the first two episodes. It kind of built me up to a certain point. And I think what can happen sometimes if you have a certain expectation about a series in the show, when it kind of, for me, it kind of pulled me down. And this is getting to be something I'm becoming accustomed to with a lot of these great book adaptations to TV shows now, and that is as they progress through the season and through the episodes, we kind of have these much slower episodes, through the middle of it, and then it kind of starts to pick up in the first few episodes, and then towards the end it really picks up. And so I would imagine they're following suit, but with so many deities out there we haven't been introduced to yet, and with I could be mistaken, is it 8 episodes I think Stars Network is doing with this? I just think they could have done a lot more introduction to some of the newer gods, the older gods, and kind of kept that story going so we can go ahead and get introduced to a lot of these people. But jumping right into this week's episode, we recall we had been left with a cliffhanger from episode 2, and that's when Shadow battled the Black God, or excuse me, the Slavic god Zernabog, and he lost, and we were kind of left with this cliffhanger of what's going to happen to Shadow. And it opens up, pretty much with Shadow kind of being in this. It appears he's having a dream, and I felt that was quite interesting because, throughout this entire, show, or at least the first few episodes, to me, Shadow, the way he behaves throughout the entire, event that's happening to him, he seems to move in this dream-like situation, this dream-like state. And it's quite interesting to see him laying on the couch or the sofa as we open up, and seemingly still kind of following on with that dream-like state. But he gets up off the couch. He seems to be very much awake. Kind of goes out on the roof, and he meets one of the Zoryas, and I'm not going to even try to pronounce her name. I'm not certain how it's pronounced. I'm pretty sure I'm going to butcher it. It might be something like Polunchnia, or something like that. It's Slavic. And the Zoryas there's these 3 sisters. They're goddesses, and they guard the heavens from there's, I believe she calls it some type of beast, and she watches the heavens to make sure that it doesn't get free. And if it does get free, the notion, I believe, being it can destroy the world. And so they're all kind of on watch, and she's kind of pulling, I guess you could say, the midnight shift. So she's the midnight sister, the midnight sister. She might be known as the midnight star in Slavic mythology, if I'm not mistaken. And she's a sister of the other two sisters we met, the other two Zorya, that we had met in the previous episodes. And I imagine they keep watch during the daytime. But Shadow finds her, and they have a discussion. And she's interested in Shadow, and foretelling his future, things like that. And she discovers that Shadow, besides being a man who doesn't have, much to lose, she's aware that her father is now in a pact to kill him by him, losing the checkers game, as we saw. And she's basically, as this goddess, I imagine, being in this state where she's constantly on guard and, out at midnight. She's never kissed a man before, and that's something that interests her. And she kind of strikes a bargain with Shadow. If he allows her to kiss her, she can grant him an edge over her father in order to, preserve his life, as we learn, at least temporarily. And so, Shadow, after that, the midnight rendezvous, he awakens, still feeling he's in this dreamlike state, but he discovers, this coin, which was taken, she kind of just reached out into the moon and pulled the moon out and gave him this coin. Shadow discovers that, the event was real and that he wasn't dreaming it. And, he then goes on to challenge Zorya, once again, to a game of checkers, this time doubling the stakes in the wager, and learning Zorya's game in order to beat him, with the help of Halinoshnia, or the Zorya sister. And, so Chernobyl agrees to go with Wotan or Odin in order to, have this engage in, what we believe to be this war coming between these gods. When Shadow encounters Mr. Wednesday again, who we pretty much know is the god Odin at this point, he has this interesting idea to rob a bank. And, how Odin's operating through this series, he's obviously very, he can influence and kind of make people do, what he wants, and he's, very good at this. Apparently, this is one of his abilities. But we also get this interesting situation where Shadow Moon is able to basically, make it snow, and at least that's what it seems it has appeared. And where I'm kind of taken back with that scene is Odin keeps telling him to think snow, and the snow is going to, basically be a part of the diversion needed in order for them to rob this bank and various things like that. But the thing was, I was trying to figure out, was it that Shadow Moon actually made the snow because he has some power of ability that we're not aware of, or was it through some type of belief in Odin that he was able to make it snow? Not really sure about that and how that happened, but apparently Shadow Moon has some type of power. What was also very interesting in this week's episode, something in particular I liked, was the introduction of the god Anubis, and he encounters this woman who's dying or who's actually died, and he's there to take her to the afterlife as part of Egyptian mythology in the Book of the Dead. And apparently she still knows the old ways, and that's why he's there to take her, weigh her heart upon a scale, and basically determine if she's worthy and which afterlife she's going to enter into. And I thought that was very interesting. I thought the visuals was great in that scene. Personally, my understanding of the show was that Anubis, along with the character called Mr. Ibis, or who we get to learn is going to be playing the god Thoth. What I find interesting, about those two, they're apparently going to be running this funeral service together. But I would have liked to seen a lot more of the character Anubis and how he operates within this, situation with Thoth. And we did get to see Mr. Ibis doing some introductions to how the older gods got to America and things like that, which I thought was quite interesting, and that interested me a lot, and I want to see a lot more of that in this week's episode. Didn't get it, but we did get the leprechaun, Matt Sweeney, and he's just having a pretty rough time because apparently he's lost his lucky coin. He's mistakenly given it to Shadow Moon, so he's trying to track down Shadow Moon. And without this coin, apparently all bad luck follows him wherever he goes, and so he's basically just having a really rough time. He gets a ride from a stranger who's actually killed from his bad luck and him not having his coin. And he does find Shadow, but Shadow lets him know, hey, I tossed a coin on my wife's grave. You're going to have to go there and get it. And it's very interesting when Matt Sweeney does arrive there. We get to see that apparently this coin he has a lot of power because it seemingly caused Shadow Moon's wife, who he thought was dead, Laura Moon, to rise from the dead. And then she's gone out of her grave. And apparently the coin with her. So Leprechaun's not too happy about that. And also was very interesting, this scene we got with the Djinn, who we had seen earlier. Djinn being these creatures, kind of like these mystical creatures, like angels or something, but they're made out of fire. And we got to see this Djinn earlier having a meeting with Odin, and his eyes flaming. But he meets this gentleman, in a cab. He's actually driving cabs, and they have a relationship, and this very gritty sex scene. And what I want to say about that too is that I think since with Game of Thrones, since Game of Thrones has started along this path, creating these very explicit sex scenes, that I think it's put a lot of shows under pressure, writers and productions, to try to follow suit, with what we see displayed to us on screen. And I just wanted to say that I don't think that it's necessary for writers and producers to feel under pressure to duplicate this. I think you can still tell a good story without all these very explicit sex scenes, especially when a lot of times they may not even be needed. And so I just, would like to kind of put that out there to them, that, all these explicit sex scenes are not always necessary. They don't always have to push the envelope to tell a good story, but we get that here, and we get this interesting take on this Djinn character who pretty much swaps identities with this, with this guy. And I'm not sure if this is done temporarily or this is who he's going to be now. But found it quite interesting. The Djinn, where they fit in, and I also believe Bilquis is a Djinn as well, who plays the Queen of Sheba, a goddess of love. I believe she's a Djinn as well. But pretty much the end of the story, we get Laura Moon returning from the grave, calling Shadow Moon puppy, and we kind of end there, with that episode. So, fair episode, interesting as always. I would have liked to seen a lot more in this week's episode with the introduction of the old gods and the new gods. But as I said when I opened up, Neil Gaiman, if they're going to do the show much like his book, the show's not going to be in a hurry to get any place, and based on that, I can see it, them having several seasons. But in next week's episode, I think we might be introduced to the goddess Astarte, or Easter rather, and that will be interesting. And I think we might also get a little bit of Mr. Ibis, or the god Thoth. So we'll be looking forward to that. Hopefully that'll pick up, from this episode, like the first two episodes. I'm not saying this week's episode was bad or anything like that. I just wanted to see, more, in the area of the new gods and the old gods, and didn't get that. But did get some interesting visuals. So anyway, guys, I hope you like this week's review. If you like content like this, don't forget to like and subscribe. And until next time, take care.